Jackson Reynolds woke to the sound of screeching metal and unfamiliar voices. The world around him was not the one he had fallen asleep in the night before. The familiar hum of his earthbound home had been replaced by the cold, mechanical rhythm of something far less comforting. His first instinct was to move, but his body felt strangely heavy, uncooperative. Panic set in as he tried to push against the restraints holding him in place, his heart hammering in his chest. Then his mind cleared enough to understand. He wasn't on Earth anymore. As his eyes blinked open, his vision adjusted to the dim, greenish light of the room. His head ached as if something were pressing inside his skull. But there was no time for pain. He was alone, but the feeling of being watched crawled over his skin. The air was thick with a metallic smell, and the silence was broken only by the occasional hiss of unseen machinery. He strained against the confines of his seat, the soft whir of mechanical arms releasing him from his harness. As his feet touched the cold floor, he swayed, disoriented. The walls of the room were smooth, metallic, and curved, not unlike the inside of a ship, but not any ship he had ever seen before. Something about the design made it clear this wasn't human technology. Suddenly, a door at the far side of the room opened with a soft whoosh. Jackson's heart skipped a beat. A figure stepped through, tall and slender, their movements graceful and fluid. They were humanoid, but not quite human. Their skin shimmered like polished obsidian, and their eyes glowed faintly in the low light. Jackson's first thought was that they were alien. Of course, that made sense. He had no idea how he had gotten here, but he couldn't deny the truth anymore. He was on an alien ship, surrounded by alien life. The being regarded him with a cool, detached stare. For a moment, Jackson thought he might be in danger, but then the alien spoke, their voice smooth and melodic, yet cold. "Your Earth, it is fragile. But you will change that." The words didn't make sense at first, but they were accompanied by a strange compulsion to listen. The being moved toward him, its long limbs sweeping with each step. "You have been chosen human," it continued. "Your species is near extinction, and yet it has the potential to become something more, something beyond the limits of your kind. We have trained you." Jackson blinked, still processing what was happening. "Trained me? What do you mean, train me?" The alien didn't respond immediately. Instead, it raised one of its long, delicate hands, and with a soft gesture, a holographic screen appeared between them. Images flashed across the surface, worlds, stars, ships, and people Jackson didn't recognize. Some of them were beautiful, others terrifying. Some showed destruction, entire cities burning, people in agony. "Your kind," the alien said, "has the potential to reach the stars. But first, it must learn discipline, control, focus. You were chosen because you are different." Jackson's mind spun as the screen shifted, showing his own face, though he didn't recognize it. The face was older, battle-hardened, with scars that were not his own. The figure in the hologram was stronger, sharper, somehow more dangerous. "What did you do to me?" Jackson asked, his voice shaking with confusion and rising anger. The alien tilted its head, considering him. "We did nothing but guide you. The training was yours to accept or refuse. We only provided the means. You have been conditioned. Your body, your mind, your soul, they are now ours to command." Jackson stumbled backward, his chest constricted, his breathing shallow. He wanted to scream, but no words came out. His mind felt fractured, like it was being torn between two realities. He remembered Earth, the life he had lived, the people he had known. But he also remembered the training, the harsh, relentless days spent in a foreign place, learning things no human should know. Languages, combat techniques, advanced technologies. He had been taught to survive, to fight, to win. And then there was something else, a cold darkness lurking beneath it all, a void he couldn't quite grasp. A part of him that had been reshaped, molded by forces he couldn't comprehend. "You are part of something greater now," the alien said, snapping Jackson from his thoughts. "You will understand in time. The war, the great war to come. You will lead your species to victory." Jackson clenched his fists. He didn't feel like a leader. He didn't feel like a warrior. He felt like a puppet, strings pulled by something he couldn't even see. But the alien's words resonated in his chest, vibrating with a strange urgency. "I don't belong here," Jackson whispered, more to himself than to the alien. The being's eyes gleamed, and it stepped forward, placing a cold hand on Jackson's shoulder. "You belong wherever you choose," it said. "But first, you must learn what it means to be more than human, to wield the power you have been given, the power of the stars." As the words sunk in, Jackson's thoughts turned to the one thing he couldn't forget, Earth, and the fury that would rise when he returned. Days, or was it weeks, passed in a blur. Jackson's sense of time was warped, as though he had been living in some dreamscape, one that twisted between reality and illusion. The alien ship was vast, its interior like a maze of gleaming corridors and dark chambers. He was constantly being watched, but not by the alien that had first spoken to him. No, that being had vanished, replaced by a series of others, each colder, more calculating than the last. They never spoke to him directly, only watched as he underwent the training. They didn't explain much about what they had done to his body, but every time he looked in the mirror, he saw the changes. His muscles had become taut, his senses heightened. His mind had expanded, assimilating information at an alarming rate. Alien languages, tactics, combat strategies, it all flooded into him, as though his brain were a sponge soaking up infinite knowledge. It was overwhelming. It was unnatural. But the worst part? The worst part was the feeling that he wasn't just being trained by these beings, but remade. He could feel the alien influence deep within him, like something insidious crawling beneath his skin. The more he learned, the more detached he became from his own humanity. There were moments, fleeting ones, where he felt like himself again, but those moments slipped away as soon as they appeared, drowned by the cold teachings of his alien instructors. One night, after another grueling training session, Jackson found himself alone in a small chamber. It was quiet, save for the soft hum of the ship's systems. He sat on a bench, his hands clenched into fists. He stared at them, the palms scarred from weeks of combat training. He tried to think of Earth, of home, the smell of rain, the feel of grass beneath his feet, the faces of his family. But all he could picture now was the cold, unfeeling faces of the aliens who had reshaped him. Suddenly, a sound broke the silence. Footsteps echoed down the hallway, drawing nearer. Jackson's instincts kicked in before his mind had fully processed what was happening. He sprang to his feet, his senses sharp, and his breath caught in his throat. Something had changed in him, something primal, something violent. The door slid open, revealing one of the aliens. This one was different from the others, taller, its skin an iridescent shade of blue, with eyes that shimmered like stars. It tilted its head, its gaze piercing, as if it could see deep into Jackson's soul. "You are not ready," it said, its voice resonating with a cold power. Jackson's muscles tensed. There was something in the alien's tone that made his heart race. It wasn't a simple statement, it was a challenge. "Not ready for what?" Jackson spat, his voice low and dangerous. He didn't know where the anger had come from, but it was there, bubbling just beneath the surface. A dark hunger. The alien stepped forward, its movements fluid, like a predator testing its prey. "Not ready to fight for your species. Not ready to lead them." Jackson gritted his teeth. "I don't want to fight. I don't want to lead. I want to go home." The alien's lips, if they could be called lips, curved slightly, an expression that might have been amusement or maybe pity. "Home," it repeated. "You speak of Earth as though it still exists. You are nothing more than a ghost of that place now." Jackson's chest tightened. He wanted to lash out, to tell this being that it didn't know anything about Earth, about the people he loved. But he could feel it, the alien's influence. It was inside him, changing him, making him cold. The knowledge, the power, the anger. It was all rising to the surface, ready to consume him. "You think you're the only one with power," Jackson said, taking a step toward the alien, his eyes burning with defiance. "I may not be fully human anymore, but I'm still Earth's fury." The alien's expression shifted, a flicker of recognition in its eyes. It seemed to hesitate just for a moment. The fury of Earth, it repeated, almost thoughtfully. It is a powerful force. But it is chaotic, untamed. You will need control, Jackson Reynolds. The rage you feel must be harnessed, or it will consume you. And if it consumes you, it will consume Earth with you. Jackson's mind raced. Was this what they had been training him for? To harness the fury of Earth itself? The thought was intoxicating, but also terrifying. What if he was losing himself in the process? What if, when he finally returned to Earth, there would be nothing left of the man he had once been? The alien turned, its long, graceful form fading into the shadows of the hallway. "Come," it called over its shoulder, its voice almost a command. "You will learn how to control it, or you will die in your own fury. The choice is yours." Jackson stood frozen in place for a long moment, his mind churning with uncertainty and anger. He didn't know who he was anymore. He didn't know what he was becoming. But one thing was clear. He was no longer just Jackson Reynolds from Earth. He was something else entirely. And Earth's fury was about to be unleashed. As he followed the alien down the dimly lit corridors, Jackson's thoughts turned to Earth once more. He would return. He would show them all what he had become, what he had been made into. But the question lingered. When he came back, would he still recognize himself? Or had the fury within him already taken control? Jackson's footsteps echoed in the darkened hallways as he followed the alien deeper into the heart of the ship. The further they went, the more oppressive the atmosphere became. The walls seemed to close in, and the air grew thicker, almost suffocating. It was as if the ship itself were alive, pulsing with a dark energy that resonated with the fury growing within him. The alien led him to a chamber that was unlike any other he had seen. It was vast, almost cavernous, with towering pillars that seemed to stretch up into infinity. The floor was smooth and dark, but Jackson could see faint patterns running through it, glowing in intricate designs. At the center of the room stood an imposing structure, something like an altar, but with mechanical elements woven into its design. It hummed with an unnatural power, a presence that made Jackson's skin crawl. "You've come to learn," the alien said, its voice cold, detached. "To master the power you now possess. To understand the force of your fury." Jackson's fists clenched at his sides. He was beginning to feel like a pawn in some cosmic game, and yet there was something in him, deep down, that craved this power. He wanted to be stronger. He wanted to control his destiny. The thought of returning to Earth, of confronting whatever lay waiting for him there, filled him with a fire that he hadn't felt before. But there was also a darkness creeping inside him, an emptiness that told him this power would come at a price. "Master it?" Jackson asked, his voice grating with barely contained anger. "What do you mean by that?" The alien turned its eyes toward him, those cold, glowing orbs that seemed to pierce into his very soul. "You are becoming something more than human, Jackson Reynolds. But the power you seek to wield is dangerous. It is not simply a tool, it is a force that has consumed entire civilizations, a force that is as much a curse as it is a gift." Jackson's breath quickened. He had felt it, the rage bubbling beneath the surface. It wasn't just anger anymore, it was a hunger, a need to destroy, to consume. He had already seen glimpses of his own transformation. His body faster, stronger, more agile. His mind sharper, more focused. But now, with the alien's words hanging in the air, he realized what had been growing inside him wasn't just power. It was something darker, something that wanted to tear everything down. "Why me?" Jackson asked, his voice hoarse. "Why did you choose me? What makes me different?" The alien regarded him for a long moment before responding. "You were chosen because your rage is pure, untainted by the weakness of your kind. The humans on your planet are fragile, but you possess the potential to transcend that fragility. You are a vessel for something far older, far more primal. But it is not a gift without consequences. You are walking a thin line, Jackson Reynolds. The moment you falter, the fury will take you." Jackson's pulse raced as the alien's words sank in. He felt the weight of them pressing down on him, suffocating him. He wanted to scream, to lash out, but he held it in, his body trembling with the effort. He wasn't sure if he was angry at the alien for pushing him toward this or angry at himself for letting it happen. "Take a seat," the alien commanded, stepping aside to reveal a chair at the base of the altar-like structure. "You will need to understand the cost of what you are becoming." Jackson hesitated, but something within him urged him forward. He sat down, his body stiff as he adjusted to the strange, alien energy that seemed to hum through the room. As he settled into the chair, a series of metal tendrils emerged from the altar, wrapping themselves around his arms and legs. It wasn't painful at first, just a cold, invasive pressure, but soon a sharp, stinging sensation shot through his body. His breath caught in his throat as the tendrils tightened, drawing his limbs immobile. The alien stepped forward, its voice soft now, almost sympathetic. "This is the first lesson. The price of power is control. You will feel the fury coursing through your veins, but you must learn to channel it, to master it. Only then will you be able to return to your world and claim your place as its ruler." Jackson's vision blurred as the pain intensified, but through the haze, he saw flashes of something else. Images of destruction, of cities burning, of people screaming in agony. He saw Earth ravaged, a world torn apart by war. He saw himself in the center of it, leading armies, fighting against enemies, fighting against himself. The fury was building, rising like an uncontrollable storm inside him. It wanted to explode, to unleash itself upon the world, to tear everything apart. He could feel the heat of it, the sheer power. It was intoxicating. "No," Jackson shouted, his voice a raw, guttural cry. "I won't become this. I won't." The alien's expression remained unchanged. "You cannot deny what you are, Jackson Reynolds. This power is inside you now. It is you." With a final agonizing pull, the tendrils withdrew, leaving Jackson gasping for breath. He collapsed forward, his body trembling with the aftereffects of the ordeal. His mind was racing, his thoughts chaotic. He had seen it, what he could become, and it terrified him. But there was something else there, too. A deep hunger, a burning need to bring about that destruction. It was like a drug, and now he was addicted. "You have passed the first trial," the alien said, its voice cold, distant. "Now, you must decide what you will do with this power. Will you harness it for your own will, or will you let it consume you?" Jackson's breath was shallow, his body exhausted. He couldn't answer, couldn't even process the question. All he could feel was the rage, the fury, and the knowledge that he was forever bound to it. The alien's voice echoed in his mind. "Remember, Jackson Reynolds, the power you hold is both a gift and a curse. How you use it will define your future and the future of your people." As he slowly rose to his feet, Jackson realized something terrifying. The fury was no longer just a part of him. It was him. The days blurred together as Jackson continued his training. Each session felt like a battle not only against the alien instructors, but against the growing beast inside him, the fury that was always just beneath the surface. He could feel it now, thrumming within him, a constant hum that echoed in his veins. It was more than rage. It was a force, a primal energy that had become entwined with his very being. The longer he spent in the alien ship, the more he could feel his connection to Earth slipping away. In its place was the cold, calculated nature of his new existence. It had started slowly, fleeting moments where his mind would momentarily slip away from his human self. But those moments were becoming longer, more frequent. He felt like a spectator in his own body, as though he were watching someone else wielding the power he had once feared. It wasn't just the alien training anymore. It was something deeper, something darker. One night, as he lay in his quarters, his thoughts raced. He could hear the thrum of the ship's engines, the hum of its systems, but nothing about it felt familiar anymore. It was as though the ship itself had become a part of him. The alien power coursing through his veins. No, it wasn't just coursing through him. It was him. He had become the instrument of destruction they wanted. The image of Earth, burning beneath the fury of his own rage, flickered in his mind like a sickening vision. And for the first time, he couldn't tell if it filled him with horror or something darker, something he didn't recognize. The alien teachings had taught him to control the fury, to mold it, but the longer he stayed, the more Jackson realized that the lesson was a lie. There was no control. There was only submission, submission to the power. He was a weapon now, plain and simple. The question was, who would he aim that weapon at? He had once thought of returning to Earth and protecting it, but now, he wasn't sure if he cared about saving a world that had already left him behind. Every thought of his home was tainted by the realization that he had been changed, irreparably changed. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. Jackson didn't move at first. He didn't want to see anyone. But the knock came again, more insistent this time. Without thinking, he rose to his feet, his mind snapping into alertness. His body moved on its own, faster, stronger than it ever had before. When he opened the door, it wasn't one of the usual instructors who stood there, but one of the alien beings he had only seen a few times before, a high-ranking figure, one of the architects of his training. It looked down at him, its glowing eyes betraying nothing but cold indifference. "Jackson Reynolds," the alien said in its smooth voice, "it's time for you to face your final trial." Jackson frowned, confusion washing over him. "Final trial? I don't understand." "What trial?" The alien stepped forward, its presence overwhelming. "The trial is not one of strength, but of choice. You will soon be sent back to your world. Your training is complete. But before that, you must decide. Will you submit fully to the power you possess, or will you fight against it?" Jackson's heart pounded in his chest. A choice. This was a choice he had not anticipated. He had thought the aliens were simply molding him into a weapon to be unleashed on Earth. But this was different. "And if I choose to fight it?" Jackson asked, his voice hoarse. "What happens if I refuse to submit?" The alien's eyes glinted, a flicker of something almost like amusement crossing its features. "If you choose to resist, you will burn from within. You will fracture and break until there is nothing left of you. You will be consumed by the fury. There will be no escape." Jackson felt a chill crawl down his spine. "And if I submit? Then you will return to Earth as a leader, its savior, its ruler. You will bend its people to your will. You will reign over them." Jackson took a step back, his mind racing. This was the moment, the point of no return. The alien had given him a choice, but it was not a choice he wanted. He didn't want to be a king. He didn't want to rule. He didn't want to be a weapon. But then, was that even possible? Was it possible to undo what had been done to him? Could he resist the pull of the fury that had already begun to warp him into something else? Something dangerous? The alien's gaze held him captive, its voice a soft murmur. "The fury you feel is not just a part of you, Jackson Reynolds. It is a reflection of what lies beneath your world's surface, the violence, the chaos, the potential for destruction. You may think you are resisting it, but deep down, you already understand its power. You are already one with it." "No," Jackson whispered, shaking his head. "I'm not like that. I'm not a monster." The alien stepped closer, its hand extending toward Jackson's chest. "You are already more than human, Jackson. The fury is inside you. It has always been inside you. You were born for this." Jackson's breathing quickened. The anger surged again, overwhelming him, and for a split second, it felt like everything he had been taught, everything he had resisted, was finally taking hold. The fury was like a fire licking at his soul, threatening to consume everything. He clenched his fists, feeling his body bristle with the power of it. But then something shifted. In the depths of his mind, Jackson saw it. Earth. His home. The people he had left behind. The ones who had no idea what he had become, what he was being turned into. They were counting on him to come back, to protect them. And with that thought, a flash of clarity pierced through the rage. He wasn't ready to let go of Earth, not yet. Not without a fight. With every ounce of willpower he had left, Jackson pushed the fury down, forcing it back into the pit of his soul where it belonged. It clawed at him, a beast that wanted to break free, but he resisted. For now, the alien watched him closely, as though testing him, measuring him. "You have made your choice," it said quietly. Jackson took a deep breath, the tension in his body easing slightly, though the storm inside him had not fully subsided. "No," he said firmly. "I choose to fight." The alien nodded slowly, its eyes glowing with an unreadable expression. "Very well. But know this, Jackson Reynolds, the fury is not something you can tame. It will always be a part of you. And when you return to your world, when you stand before them, it will be your true test. The question is not whether you will fight against it, but whether you can keep it from consuming you." Jackson swallowed hard, feeling the weight of the alien's words pressing down on him. He had made his choice, but now he had to face the consequences. The fury was part of him, but he wasn't ready to let it control him. Not yet. The trial wasn't over. The real battle had just begun. Jackson stood on the observation deck, staring out at the endless blackness of space, the stars swirling like distant fireflies. He could feel the hum of the alien ship beneath his feet, the faint pulse of its engines propelling them forward through the void. He had passed the trial, but the weight of the choice he had made was still heavy on him. The fury inside him had not gone away. It simmered just below the surface, an ever-present reminder of what he had become. The alien presence in the ship had grown quieter since that night. Their constant surveillance had lessened, as though they were waiting for something. Perhaps they were waiting for him to fail. Perhaps they were waiting for him to embrace the power they had given him. But Jackson wasn't ready to let that happen. Not yet. The ship was nearing Earth now. He could feel it, something pulling him toward home. His mind was conflicted, torn between the memories of a world he had left behind and the terrifying potential of what he had become. The humans on Earth had no idea what awaited them. The aliens had promised him dominion over them, the power to rule. But Jackson's heart, what remained of it, rebelled at the thought. He wasn't a conqueror. Not yet. Not if he could help it. The door behind him opened, and the alien from earlier, the one who had presented him with the final trial, entered. It was taller now, its figure more imposing, its eyes darker, as though it had seen something in him it hadn't anticipated. "Jackson Reynolds," it said in its smooth voice, "the time has come. You are to descend to the surface of your planet and fulfill your purpose." Jackson turned to face it, his jaw clenched, his fists at his sides. He had always known this moment would come, the moment when he had to face Earth, when he would stand before the people of his home world and decide whether he would use his new power for good or destruction. But the alien's words sent a chill through him. He didn't want a purpose forced on him. He wanted to be the master of his own fate. "I'm not going down there to rule them," Jackson said, his voice steady but filled with determination. "I'm not their king, and I'm not going to destroy them." The alien's expression didn't change, though a small flicker of something, perhaps disappointment or curiosity, passed through its eyes. "You misunderstand, Jackson Reynolds. The fury within you is not something you can control forever. It will eventually consume you. Your only choice is whether you will use that power before it destroys you, or before you are destroyed by it." Jackson stepped toward the alien, his heart pounding in his chest, but his mind clear. "You're wrong," he said, his voice sharp. "I can control it. I can fight it. I may have been changed, but I'm still me, and I will make my own choice." The alien tilted its head, studying him with what might have been a mixture of admiration and disbelief. "Very well. You may believe that for now. But when you land, when you stand among your people, you will feel it. The fury will rise. You will feel the weight of it. And when you do, we will see what you choose." Without another word, the alien turned and left, the door sliding shut behind it with a soft hiss. Jackson stood in the silence, his fists clenched, the ship now shuddering as it entered Earth's atmosphere. The flames of re-entry reflected in the viewports, painting the room in shades of orange and red. His thoughts turned back to Earth, to the faces he remembered. His family, his friends, the people he had fought for before. They would never recognize him now. His body, his mind, his very soul had been remade in the image of something alien. And now he was returning to them, not as the man he had been, but as something else. Was he still human? Or was he becoming something far darker? The ship broke through the clouds, and descended toward the surface. Jackson could feel the fury stirring inside him, a storm ready to break free. But he wouldn't, let it take control. He had made a choice. He would fight it. The ship's landing gear thudded against the ground with a deep, resonant sound. Jackson's breath caught in his throat as the doors to the ship opened, the light of Earth spilling into the dim, alien interior. He stepped out onto the ground, the familiar scent of dirt and rain filling his nostrils, a pang of nostalgia and grief clawing at him. The land was still the same, but everything else had changed. There were no welcoming crowds, no triumphant return. There was only silence. He raised his eyes, scanning the horizon. The world was vast and empty, as though waiting for something, waiting for him. As Jackson moved forward, his footsteps sure, but his mind torn, he knew that the moment he had been dreading had arrived. The fury had followed him here. It would never leave him. The question now was simple. What would he do with it? He had no answers. Only the burning certainty that he could not allow himself to be the instrument of destruction they wanted him to be. But the path forward was unclear, the weight of his power heavier with each step. There would be those who would come for him, who would seek to control him, or worse, who would see him as the weapon he had become. But the worst enemies he knew would not be the ones who hunted him. They would be the ones inside him, the fury, and Earth's future. As he walked toward the unknown, Jackson Reynolds knew one thing for certain. This was not the end of his story. This was only the beginning. And the fury had just begun to show its true face.